I'm feeling a little bit thrown off because I'm in a different location. No, this is not a recap of. Oh, there's Kendrick. Just sorry to be bothering you because you were sleeping. This is not a recap of a festival. I am just in a new location because we have guests and I can't be where I normally am. So, with that being said, hope you enjoy this episode coming to you from my sunroom. Let's get into it. Take 81. What's good, peacemakers? Welcome back to another episode of the Piece for Peace Crafting podcast. I'm Michael, and this is my crafty corner of the YouTube universe. If you would like to find me on other social medias, you can do so by following me over on Ravelry as Piece for Peace Craft, or over on Instagram and Threads as Piece for Peace Crafting. I really need to get back on posting to Threads. And if you like music and you would like to jam out to some fun things that I recommend on this silly little channel, you can do so by following the Piece for Peace Crafting podcast playlist over on Spotify. I think that is it. Friends, welcome in. Today is, first of all, let me slow down. How have you all been? It's been 2 weeks. Things have been a little bit different for me. If you follow me on social media, on Instagram really. I guess here too, because I posted something in the community tab, you will know that I recently have been dealing with a little bit of knitter's elbow, and so I have not been able to craft the way that I want to. And so with that, the past 2 weeks have been a little bit slow for me, if I'm being honest. I tried to put a couple hexagons on my safe space blanket. I tried knitting on my socks a little bit. And if I'm being honest, it wasn't like excruciating pain, but it was enough of a discomfort where I was like, I just can't be doing this. And so I've been looking up things and talking to folks. So thank you for recommendations for people who have reached out, for who I've reached out to. Icing, just trying to rest it. I know I can get one of those little band things to put on, but I'm trying to go the route of just resting it and hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll be back and ready to go sometime soon. And so with that, I do think that it's great for me that I have a bunch of different crafts that I am interested in. And so, I've got my wheel back out. So that's been really good. Sorry, there's like fiber in my mouth now. I got my wheel back out, which has been nice, or just like not out, like it was put away. But I've been spinning a little bit more, and I even started some needle felting, which there's nothing for me to really show, but in the next 2 weeks, hopefully there will be something to show. It's gonna be awful, but it's gonna be cute because it's so awful, you know what I mean? And so I thought that since I didn't have a lot to show, I would try something a little bit different. So I hope if you are a fan of the podcast and you've been here for a while, I hope this is still enjoyable to you. If this is your first time watching, this is something a little bit different, and I still hope it's enjoyable to you. If you think it is, you can do all that fun YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. Right. So I've noticed that there are some new peacemakers that are following the channel who have recently subscribed. And since I haven't been able to knit very much, I put in the community tab here on YouTube and a post over in my stories on Instagram and said, for this episode, I thought I would do like a little Q&A type of dealio. Actually, I'm gonna reach back and grab my tea. Just because I feel like maybe some of us don't want to go back to the beginning and start at the beginning, or maybe there's information that I haven't said on here before. And yeah, I thought that this might be just another fun little way for you all to hang out with me. People submitted questions. I have, it's 2 pages, but you all, if I'm being honest, like I am self-diagnosed dyslexic. And so I had to print the questions out very large so I could see them while I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. And so I've taken all the questions. I took out any of the repeats. There aren't a lot, but there are a lot. So this episode won't be as long as my normal episodes. I'm going to try to go through them pretty quickly. But I thought it might be fun. Now I'm second guessing myself. I thought it might be fun. I watch Tashi over at Stitches and Starlight, and she was doing this during her Vlogmas episodes where she would just like answer questions or talk about topics and things and just like spin a little bit. And so I thought, oh, I'm gonna try that for this. Now, I am not by any means some great spinner, so no judging me on my technique. We're just here to hang out. I'm gonna answer some folks' questions. I am spinning up some fiber that I was gifted like 2 Christmases ago now. It's wool themed, I believe. This is a Christmas advent, which has been really lovely to get back to spinning. So I'm just spinning this up. I want to say it's a merino fiber. I should have looked all of this up before I started, but literally I was like, oh, I think this will be a good idea. And I just sat down. This was already at the wheel. You guys, you know the chaos that ensues on this channel. So if you all are game, I am just going to spin for a little bit, and I hope you enjoy just sitting and listening to me answer some questions. If this isn't your jam, it's all good. Have a great 2 weeks, and I will see you for a normal episode of the podcast. And for those of you who have literally told me you could just sit and chat about anything and we would come and hang out with you, peace and love to you. I hope you enjoy this. Yeah, I'm just gonna answer some questions for you all. So the first one, and you all, if I had if I was more organized, I would have tried to put all the questions in certain segments. I didn't. I just put them all on a page and said, we're just gonna go for it. So the first thing is, what are you drinking? What am I drinking? Usually when I'm recording for the podcast, I am having tea a lot of the times. We have a really nice like coffee and tea place. It's not close to us, but it is it's a local place. And so we like to buy like a lot of loose leaf teas. And so I'm usually having one of those. This morning I'm having some chamomile just to relax myself before I have to go into work after I'm done recording this. The next question is, and I have them printed over here, so I'm not going to be looking at the camera as much as I normally do, but when did I start knitting? Who taught me how to knit? And what led me on my knitting journey? My friend who I danced with, he excuse me, was the one that taught me how to knit. And honestly, it happened sort of just like out of my own curiosity. We were in a rehearsal for a big ballet. For those that know ballet, we were rehearsing Giselle, which is like one of the classics. And there isn't really a lot for the ensemble men to do in the second act. And he was doing one of the leads, but we were like, weren't rehearsing his group. Anyway, he, on breaks and things, was knitting something for his wife, who was also a dancer in the company. And I had just been watching, I mean, we're friends, so I had just been watching him and hanging out like during our 5-minute breaks or whatever. And finally I was just like, hey, I want you to teach me how to do that. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, here's what you need to get. And yeah, just go and pick this stuff up. And so I did. I went to my local big box store. I got some needles and, you know, some yarn. I don't remember what it was. And he basically taught me the knit stitch and the purl stitch, maybe over the course of 2 days. And I literally just went back and forth doing that with no real like goal in mind. It was just me trying to figure out those stitches. And so that was probably around 2007, which is crazy to think. And shortly after that, so I did that for a little while. And once I, you know, figured out some things, I made like a lot of rectangular items. So scarves, lots of scarves, baby blankets. I think I ventured a little bit into making like a pair of worsted weight socks on like double pointed needles, but really didn't understand a lot. Like, I don't think I was as adventurous as I was then as I am now in just like trying things. And then shortly after that, maybe in the early teens, like maybe just a couple years after, honestly, sort of the same thing happened. 2 friends in a rehearsal were crocheting. I asked them to teach me how to crochet. They were like, you already have yarn, just get these hooks. And they taught me the basic stitches for crochet. And then they, you know, like maybe a couple days later, they were like, okay, we're gonna make one of our stage managers a baby blanket. Here's the pattern. Here's sort of how you read it. Go figure out how to make these squares. You need to make whatever it was at the time, 12 of them or something. And so that was kind of my like deep dive into crochet. And to be quite honest, once I figured out how fast it worked up, I sort of was like, okay, I'm gonna stop this knitting thing for a while because it takes too long. And I think I'm a little bit, it just made me nervous. So I sort of stopped for a little bit and then, right, only crocheted, loved an amigurumi, loved a blanket. Yeah, I crocheted all the things. And it wasn't until about 2017, 2018 maybe, that I stopped dancing way before that, but a friend of mine who I was working with, a coworker, she had, sorry, I'm gonna move this mic because I feel like I keep hitting it. She'd had a scarf that someone in college had made her, and she was like, oh, this is sort of falling apart. Like, do you think you could make me something similar? I figured it out. It was knit. I had knit for a while. It was a great way for me to get back into it. And yeah, I knit her that scarf, and the rest is sort of in history. I just really fell off the deep end and have never looked back. And so now I teeter back and forth between the two, but I definitely primarily knit. Yeah, the journey's been great. Someone wanted to know, they must follow me on Instagram because this is the only place that I really show this. Oh, I guess I do a couple times on here on the YouTube channel, but they wanted to know how old was my house because it looked old-ish and like quaint. It had character to it, and honestly, I don't know. We rent this apartment, and I would guesstimate that it was probably built in the 60s or 70s. I don't know. Yeah, we love this spot. This is one of my favorite rooms in the apartment, is the sunroom. Kendrick obviously likes laying on the radiator that's behind me. But yeah, this room is great, and our living room is just off of it, and so it gets a lot of light, and we spend the majority of our time out here in this room. Next, What do you look for when you choose a pattern? Is it about the fit, new techniques? Is it purely the designer? Like a new designer, established designer? And honestly, y'all, when I'm looking for patterns to make, I am primarily just going off of vibes. Like, I look for things that I think I can incorporate into my wardrobe or that I think will like work for me. A lot of the times I think, especially for like sweaters and things, like I tend to go back to people like Maxim Sear or Stephen West because I know that the fit of the garment is gonna really fit my body well. And so whenever they come out with something, I'm always like, I'm interested to look there first before I venture out to other things. And yeah, as far as other projects, I think I'm definitely becoming more and more adventurous. And so I am looking for things with new techniques. I look for things that sort of stop me in my tracks a little bit and make me kind of like, oh, that's really interesting, or that's pretty different. Yeah, and then I just go from there. I don't really think too much about it. I just kind of go for the vibes. All right. Favorite all-time make? I don't really have one. I think if you follow and you've been following the podcast for a while, you will know. I think someone else asked me too, like, what's my proudest make? And if you follow the podcast for a while, you have seen, like, I get excited whenever I'm trying something new, and even sometimes not. Like, whether it's a new technique or just something I thought was really fun, and that to me gets me really excited. And so, like, a lot of the things that I make are sort of favorites because I just am, excuse me, I'm constantly learning something as I'm going about doing and making and creating things. And I think that that's the nice thing about, you know, what it is that we do as crafters. Sorry, this is annoying me. As crafters and creators, is we get to, yeah, either learn more about ourselves or try new things. And there we go. That to me is really exciting. Yeah. All-time knits, blah, 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 blah. Let's go with, am I planning to attend any fiber festivals? For right now, and I think this will answer another one that I may have, put in here later. For right now, I'm hoping to, well, I mean, it's in the city, so it's easy for me, to attend YarnCon, which usually happens in April here in Chicago. It's always a good time. I've only been twice, so once in 2019, right before the pandemic, and then last year, I think, was the first year back. And so, yeah, I attended then, really great. Most likely going back this year as well. I'm really hoping to go back to Rhinebeck this year and possibly one other, but I'm making sure that I can, like, you know, financially make that happen. Yeah, it's hard to go to festivals that aren't near you because it costs money to go places. And while I wish that, you know, being in this industry as a podcaster, or, you know, working for some yarny company, I wish that was a full-time gig for me and, like, that's what was paying the bills. Like, I still gotta, like, do my normal job, which is teaching dance. We love it. All right, so that is my fiber festivals. What was your favorite production you danced in? So for those that don't know, my previous life, and I can talk about this a little bit because I got this question kind of a lot actually, is my previous life, I was a professional ballet dancer for 13 years. Someone asked what company it was for. I personally would rather not say. I want to keep some things a little bit private. But I will say it was one of the big 5 in the country. And it was wonderful. I did it for 13 years. I started very young in the company, which I'm, super fortunate to that was my experience. I know that that's not the experience of everyone. And I got to see a lot of the country that I just like a lot of the country that I wouldn't have seen had I not been doing that as my career. So that's cool. Yeah, a lot of different parts of the country. It was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful, and there were definitely days and times in which it was work. I think sometimes, the collective we think about performers in the performing arts, and we think, oh, that must be such a glamorous life. It's very romanticized. And honestly, you all, it's just like any other job. Like, yes, I was fortunate to do something that I loved. That was a hobby that then turned into a career. That was really awesome. But a lot of there were definitely days where I was like, oh, I'm going to work today. Like, that's just, it is what it is. And that's fine. Like, that's going to happen. But ultimately, I loved it. So one of my favorite productions, I loved anything that wasn't a story ballet. I mean, they were fine, but that just like wasn't my jam. But one story ballet that I did love doing was Cinderella. I thought that was a good time, mostly because me and a good friend of mine, we like went to high school together, ended up dancing in the company together. I got to be one of the ugly stepsisters, and that was a blast. So the 2 of us were the stepsisters, and so it was just like, high school friends now living out our dreams as dancers, and then we get to do this funny comedic role of being 2 of the ugly stepsisters in the production, which was really awesome. It was nice making like my friends, because you're not talking, but like making my friends laugh in rehearsal by just the silly things that either choreographically or things that we would like throw in to make our characters more ridiculous. Yeah, that was good times. Yeah. Loved it. 10 out of 10 would recommend. All right. Have you ever created a music-inspired knit or crochet project? And the answer to that would be no. The only time I've ever done something that's like music-inspired is for a little bit I was workshopping dyeing yarn, just like for fun. At work in our dye studio that we have there. And I made another good friend of mine who is also a knitter crocheter a couple skeins of yarn that were based on the colors of Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer album. And that was a lot of fun. He really liked that gift. I was like, oh, this is so great. Favorite fiber to work with and why? Honestly, you all, I don't know. I think that as I'm moving more toward, especially because I'm making more garments now, as I move more, oh, I'm sorry, did I bother you again? As I'm moving more towards like not making things with superwash merino, I'm starting to learn a lot about like the different types of fibers and wools and things like that. I will say that I love Michelle's base of Wool is Nosh, that 90 superwash Targi 10% nylon base. I think I love the way it feels. I love wearing it. I really like working with it. I also like the, what is it? The like Les Garçons BFL Massam mix. I think that yarn's really beautiful too. But I will say that the more I'm venturing into more rustic yarns, I'm like trying to figure that out as I'm going. So definitely, you know, the more I create and the more I make, I will figure that out along the way. And you all, you know, if you keep coming back, will definitely be along for that journey as I discover that myself. Besides music and crafting, what do I do to recharge? I am very fortunate and live not too far from the water here in Chicago. And so one of the things that I like to do is to go outside and just be by the water. Obviously that doesn't happen as much in the wintertime, and so I haven't been doing it as of late because it's been really cold, but it is starting to warm up. And so Kendrick and I have been going on walks a little bit over there in the afternoons when I get home from work, which has been really nice. It's just like very tranquil, and you know, there's other people walking their dogs or exercising in the park or just like people hanging out. And I find that that really like brings me back to life. Especially in the warmer months, I will go in the mornings to start my day. I will get up either by myself or mostly with my roommates, and we'll go for a morning swim, which is really nice. And that really just like, I don't know, sets the tone for the day, and it makes for a really lovely experience. All right, moving right along. When I have a project to knit in the round, do I swatch in the round? And the answer to this question is yes. Usually I do whatever the technique is in the pattern. So if I'm gonna be knitting flat, I'll do my swatch flat. And if I'm gonna be knitting in the round, I do my swatch in the round. I will say that when I do my swatches in the round, let's say that it's looking for a random number of 27 stitches, or 28, whatever, 27 stitches, I will cast on, well, usually even if I'm doing it flat, I'll usually cast on 6 extra, so I have 3 on either end. So I'll do my 3, but then I'll double it so that sometimes, so that, especially if it's a color work thing, so that I get to do the color work in the round, just over a small circumference. And if not, then I'll just do it and I'll carry the long float in the back and come back through. I find that for me, it helps me to just get a better gauge of what I'm actually gonna be dealing with and working with once I get to working with the pattern. And with that, my next question is, what is my favorite sweater? And I think there was another one, do I have a go-to sort of sweater pattern that I've made over and over? I'm not there yet with my makes. I think I'm too interested in seeing and trying a bunch of different things that I haven't really gotten into just like making sort of like a basic sweater that is my go-to that I've made over and over. I have a couple that are in my library on Ravelry that I'm interested in making, and I'll probably get to, well, once I can actually knit again soon. But I will say that my favorite sweater that I personally use as a gauge for all my other sweaters is Maxim Sears single malt. I think it's my best fitting sweater. It's one that I reach for a lot. I love the fit of it. I love the way that I feel in it. And so whenever I'm doing other sweaters, I will pull it out, and it usually lives on the couch next to me or in a project bag near me so that I can reference it. Yes, I could take the measurements of it, and I have. Excuse me. It's so much talking. But I do like just holding it up to it so that I can get that visual of, oh, okay, this for sure is like giving me the same vibe and the same gauge as this sweater. Can I talk about my 2 at a time sock knitting? When do I start each section from there? So my 2 at a time socks, I knit them 2 at a time, and I usually just and I'm usually doing self-striping, so I don't have to change or do anything. It just is the yarn is going to do what it does because that's the nature of self-striping. And what I do is I cake up the yarn, and then whatever the first color is in the cake, that's where I decide that that's going to be my beginning. Actually, the second color usually. And I will then separate that cake into 2 balls, and making sure that I'm starting with the color that I'm going to start with. And then from there, I just find a color change and then do my Turkish cast on just like right after the color change and start my knitting. I do mine toe up. So then I can use more of the yarn if I want. And for the most part, I do a cut-in afterthought heel, just because I find that heel suits me. I think a lot of the time with sock knitting, there's so many things that you can do to, to get socks that fit you well, and it's all trial and error. Like I used to knit socks when I really wanted to learn how to do them like for real on DPNs, and then I switched from doing them on DPNs to, which I didn't mind because that's what I knew, right? And so then when I switched to doing it Magic Loop, I was doing them top down, and then somehow I was like, oh, I'm gonna try toe up now, and yeah, I kind of haven't looked back since then. So that's my socks for you. If I wait, what does this say? Where haven't I been in the US, and where would I like to go and why? One of the places that I've never been in the US is I've never gone really to the Pacific Northwest, and I really want to get over that way. I think my why is that it's just beautiful when I see pictures and things or videos or things that are set there, and it just looks, I don't know, it looks like it would be a good time. So the Pacific Northwest for sure has to happen. I need to get over there and see what it's all about. I hear I would love it, and so I love when people think that I would love places, because yeah, I'm like, okay, let's see if that's actually true. What's something that I've learned from my students? So for those that don't know, I teach dance now in public schools, like as an after school activity, or schools can like buy in and we can come and teach like during the day as well, like as a class during the day. And most of these kids, it's like, a supplement class instead of or with gym class or whatever. It's just something to get the kids moving. And one of the things I think that I've learned from my kids is to be curious about things. Yeah, just to be curious. Always questioning, looking at things in a different way. I teach a lot of younger kids, so like I do K through 12, but K through 3rd grade I have a lot. 2nd grade I have a lot of right now. And so that, especially that age group, they don't know anything, which is funny. But they're learning. And so I feel like seeing things through their eyes is a lot of fun. And also they've taught me patience. I didn't learn that from them because that's the most impatient group. But I've learned patience through working with them. Best resource for when I first started podcasting. There's another question in here too about like what would I tell people that want like equipment for people that want to get into podcasting. I do everything on my phone. And I think that if this is something that you want to do, just do it. And the hardest part is that first, let's say 2 times of like actually pulling your life together, getting all the projects that you want to talk about or whatever, and sitting down and just hitting record and then uploading it. But you can definitely do it on your phone. I know some other people use like really nice cameras and things like that. I don't know anything about that life. That's not my ministry. I would love for it to be one day, but for right now, I think just like doing it on my phone is what I do, and a tripod. And I have lights now because well, not right now, but normally when I'm in my normal space, just because I want things to look good. So a ring light, a phone, and a tripod, you're good to go. Like, get your best life, hit record, and do it. What have hobbies like knitting or podcasting taught me about myself? Sort of like the things with the kids is to be inquisitive, to play. I think podcasting has really showed me that that performer spirit is always going to be in me. Just like either you have it or you don't. I guess it could be taught. But yeah, just like I can be super introverted. Not super, but I can be introverted. Like I'm going to go teach my class this evening, and then like I've told my kids this before, like I love when I'm done teaching and I don't have to talk for like an hour or 2 hours. Am I like leaving them, getting ready to leave the office, taking, commuting home. Like I don't have to say anything, and I love that. Yeah, so like the performer in me is still there. That is something I enjoy, and just to continue to be curious about things. Do I have a dream yarn destination? I want to go everywhere. So no. I'm always excited whenever I can go and experience yarny goodness someplace else. So, I don't know. Iceland would be dope. Some places in Europe, but like I'm game. Honestly, I'm game for anywhere. Equipment, we did that. How do I pick my music for the intro of the podcast? Okay, you all, fun fact. The intro music that is for the podcast changes every time I have a pod-anniversary. So usually in October. And the music that is at the beginning of the podcast is made by a dancer friend of mine. A couple weeks before the podiversary episode, I'll just reach out to him and say, hey, like, can you make me another something or other? And then he just plays around and sends me some stuff. I'm very fortunate to have my collective group of dancer friends are multi-talented, and so yeah, he's the one that just puts it together for me, and I send him a couple, some like this is the vibe I want to go for, and then I just let him be creative and do his thing, and yeah, that's how I get the music for the opening of the podcast. Have I ever considered making or designing my own patterns? I've had a few people ask me this. Yes and no. I feel like I need to do more research in like what goes into it, but sure, I have ideas. I mean, I feel like I've done enough now where there are definitely things that I would like to see or that I would want, that I just need to figure out how to go about doing that, which would be pretty dope. Favorite food, salty or sweet? I will eat anything, and I would rather something be both salty and sweet, if that makes sense. Like a brownie with salted caramel, like actual chunks of salt on top. Perfection. We love it. Any mods that I make to the ribbing of my sweaters to deal with the pilling from having a beard? If I'm being honest, I don't make anything. I think I shave my beard high enough too where it doesn't really affect it, but no, I don't really make any mods in that way. And I usually do my collars like a little bit longer than the pattern says for too, and I've never really had any problems with that. I'm hoping I'm not skipping anything. Dream yarn is... Salty and sweet. Go-to sweater pattern, got that. Favorite thing to knit? I guess if you watch the podcast, I guess I would have to say that my favorite thing to knit are socks, even though I wouldn't say that it's my favorite, but I do knit a lot of socks, so I guess maybe it is. I used to really love doing making shawls, and I still do enjoy making them. But yeah, I guess socks would have to be my number one, because that's that's what I make the most of right now. My favorite dream knitting holiday. I think for me, a dream knitting holiday is anytime I get to go with fibery people to go and do something. And so, yeah, if I get to spend time with people that love making, then to me that's a dream, and I love that. Tell us about my local yarn stores. That's kind of hard. I'm very fortunate that I live in a city that has, I would guesstimate, like 7 different local yarn shops. Now, I obviously, because of neighborhood and like transportation and just like what's easiest for me to get to and the quickest, I usually frequent only like a few of them, like on the reg. But yeah, the really dope thing about Chicago is we do have so many, and all of them have, like, yes, there might be a little bit of overlap, but all of them have something different. Like there's a couple that they also, you know, do like sewing classes, so they have a lot of fabric and things of that nature, or just ones do more like yarns that are from overseas or things that are closer, like local in the area. And so I feel kind of spoiled that I can just like hop into one of them and find all sorts of different things. But yeah, the LYS game here in the city was pretty strong, I'm not gonna lie. Do I use wood needles? I only use wood needles when no, not really. I mean, I have some DPNs. They're just, I think they're clover that I use. Like that's what I'm doing my safe space blanket on. And that's about it. I just use like Knit Picks, the like nickel plated needles for everything, and I love them. I've talked about my dance career. Favorite place to knit in public in Chicago. Honestly, I think my favorite place, it's only because I do it the most, is just like while I'm commuting. So I knit on the bus a lot, and I don't know, if I can get a seat, I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna either listen to an audiobook or listen to some music and just knit on my commute. I think it's, yeah, that's my favorite place in the city to knit. If I could live in one country for the rest of my life, what would I choose? Okay, I can't choose one, but I can definitely choose 2. Out of the places that I've been, I could either live in Cambodia or Nepal. I thought both of those places were really magical for a lot of different reasons. The people were very inviting and warm, and the food was incredible, and just the history that I experienced and I learned while I was there. Granted, the history of any place is going to be vast, and so there's always things that we can be learning. Was really cool, and I just thought that my time there with who I was traveling with one of my really good friends. She and I went to high school together. Actually, on one of the trips, one of my roommates that I have now went with us, and it was just, yeah, I think one of those 2 places would be really dope. I could definitely see myself, if I had a ticket tomorrow, I'd pack up and I would go. I guess I would take Kendrick with me. No, I'm just joking. I would definitely take Kendrick with me. So I think, let me look. That's kind of a good one to end on. Favorite podcasting, yeah. So you all, I think that's kind of it. I hope this was enjoyable for you all. You get to learn a little bit more about me. Yeah. Let me know in the comments if you all enjoyed this. Oh, you know what? I lied. There was another question that said, where did it go? I must have just accidentally skipped over it. I mean, I did. Would I be interested in starting a Patreon? And I talked about this with a group that was, where was that? Oh, for the Artus Shawl meetup, which, by the way, if you've made it this far and you're interested, our last meetup is going to be March 3rd. There'll be a link down below. You can just put in your information, like your name and your email address, if you would like to join us for that like final wrap up. If you didn't participate, or even if you're like halfway done, a little bit done, you're just casting on, pop in, come hang out. We usually hang out for like an hour and a half ish. And just sit and chit chat. It's really about community building. I've had the best time doing it. And yeah, so I was talking a little bit with that group about it, and I've thought about starting a Patreon, but I wasn't really sure because I look at other people's Patreons and I'm like, I don't know what I would offer. So it's hard for me to want to set something like that up. I mean, yeah, I've thought about it. I think it would be cool. I would love to. So maybe that's something that you all can help me out with too. Like if you are interested in like me having a Patreon and you would want to support in that way, like what are some things that you would be interested in having as those fun little extras if I were to start something like that. I will say too, there were a couple things that I didn't touch on today just based off of what people were asking, but they were like really great suggestions that I think, you know, I'm trying to understand like what this channel is and how I want to continue doing it. And that, like, I love sitting down and just having the podcast and talking about what I'm making and things like that. But there are like other little, oh, it would be cool if I did this kind of video or just like this kind of video. Now that I feel like I'm like 4 years into it, and just like because I'm creative, I want to feel a little bit more creative. And so, yeah, like someone asked me to do a stash tour, which I think is hilarious. But like maybe that could be a side little video. And another friend asked, oh, you never went through all of that yarn that you got from your friend's friend? Like, could you do something like that? Yeah, and so I have a couple little other ideas that would be like, you know, not spin-offs, but one-offs from the actual podcast, because I do love doing that and sitting down and just like talking about what I'm making and what I finished and things like that. So yeah, like, what would you all be interested in? Let me know down below. I'm sort of game for anything. This lighting looks terrible, and I hope it's not bad on y'all's end. Sorry, I'm wiggling the camera. My apologies. Right. I wanna keep building and growing. I love that there are new people that have joined and are subscribing. That means a lot to me. Yeah, just because I really enjoy just like sitting and chatting about all the yarny goodness. Yeah, if you all have ideas, let me know. I love reading them. I love hearing from y'all. And I just want to keep building our little community here, because I think that the lighting is awful. Let me try to move you this way. You can see more of Kendrick. There. Did that help? Maybe. Yeah, I want to keep building the community and just having a great time, inspiring people to want to make things and to be creative and to not be afraid to be creative, I think is really important to me. Yeah, I feel like I'm rambling. Anywho, this is now almost 50 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm gonna go and get ready to leave. I'm gonna ice and do all of the things, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks I will have some progress on some things that maybe you all have seen last time that I'm then able to work on again. And until I see you all next time, y'all, make a piece, spread some peace. Peace.